the state to own and bear arms.
But whether it's the individual or the state, we know, Dr. Baldwin, we have some real problems in America dealing with these guns. And so what we're going to do, we're going to take our first commercial break, and then we're going to allow you to come back and talk about the debate dealing with guns and gun control in America.
Very good.
And of course, we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Wish. And so when we come back, we'll have 8 minutes to do that, and just take all that 8 minutes.
Very good.
And then we'll have a break, and we'll go 10 minutes.
Very good.
Okay?
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, but we're off. That's good.
Hope it's going
good.
well.
Yeah, that's good information. Thank you, and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Dr. LBaldwin, and he's given us some information in reference to the Second Amendment to the Constitution, as well as the debate over gun control. And Dr. Baldwin, let's start off again by having you to continue your discussion in reference to the Second Amendment to the Constitution and how that has created a debate over guns.
Now, we know that the Second Amendment really didn't become a part of the Constitution until 1791, when James Madison, who would become President of the United States, really came up with this idea, and it became a part of the Bill of Rights to the Constitution. There was no debate from the very beginning about the Second Amendment. But in the 20th century, beginning in the 1970s and 80s, you began to see this debate over whether or not the Second Amendment applied to the state and its right to have a militia, or whether it applied to individuals and their right to own and bear arms. So that debate is still going on. You have pro-gun advocates who argue that guns are necessary because the Constitution supports it, and also the self-defense argument is put in place. We need guns for self-defense. And then you have those gun rights opponents who argue that no, this is for the state. Individuals, the Second Amendment has nothing to do with individual rights to own and bear arms. Now, in 2008, in a case called the District of Columbia versus Heller, H-E-L-L-E-R, the Supreme Court came down on the side of individual rights. It ruled that individuals have a right to own and bear arms. And since that time, of course, there have been debates over whether or not we should have a concealed gun carry policy or an open gun carry policy. And unfortunately, some of the states have embraced both. Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, Georgia, all have what they call not only concealed carry laws, but open carry laws, which means that people can openly carry weapons. And we know that in Tennessee that can occur in restaurants, can occur in bars, and even in schools. Now, these used to be gun-free zones. There was a time when you couldn't carry guns in these zones, in schools and
restaurants
bars,
and bars,
in restaurants,
especially in bars.
Yeah,
out of all places.
Yeah, these were gun-free zones. But now we have a policy that's spreading throughout the nation where you have this open gun policy. And I think as many as 45 states have embraced that in one form or another. And that, I think, is a very serious problem, because we're losing so many people to gun violence. And you and I talked earlier about the problems in Chicago and the loss of life due to gun violence. I think it defies the rationality that we don't come up with common sense gun control laws. And until we do that, we're going to continue to see mass shootings, mass murder, because we have such an accessibility to guns. Now, if you look at other countries like Norway and Canada and Israel, they have, you know, guns, people, but we are the only nation in the world that worships guns, I think. We have more guns per person in this country than anywhere else in the world. And we have more firearm murders in this country than anywhere else in the world. So that should be a wake-up call for us to get involved in efforts to bring about some type of gun control.
You know, Dr. Baldwin, considering when we speak of a wake-up call, I think we can say that over the last 10 years, if we have not had a wake-up call to make people more conscious of the guns, considering the death of children, the mass murders here, the mass murders there, and recently the 58 people who were killed in Las Vegas. And now if that does not touch the consciousness of a nation, then I think it's going to be very, very difficult to talk about gun control until we make that happen.
Right, you're exactly right. We've had Sandy Hook, where these kids were killed. We've had, of course, the Purse nightclub in Orlando, where a lot of people were killed, and more recently in Las Vegas, which you mentioned, 58 people, actually 59, lost to gun violence. And it's all because we have not found a way to control high-powered assault weapons from getting into the hands of people who are maybe terrorists or people who are not, who have psychological problems. We have not come up with gun control laws to deal with these kinds of problems. And you have some in Congress who are arguing that the Second Amendment is unlimited when it comes to individual rights to own guns. And when you have those kinds of arguments, what can you do?
You've got guns everywhere.
Guns everywhere.
Impossible to, and even in Nashville here, we represent a high murder rate by guns and et cetera. What do we do?
Exactly. In the state of Tennessee, you have open carry laws. People can carry guns in bars, and now on college campuses, you have people who are advocating the carrying of guns, which makes no sense to me.
No sense at all. And especially if you've ever taught in a college camp, in a college, then you understand the kind of situation that you find yourself in a classroom.
Exactly.
And then to think that somebody might be out there who might pull out or openly show a gun. That's quite intimidating.
Yeah, I taught in colleges and universities for over 40 years before retiring in 2013, and I know it's not a good idea.
It's not a good idea at all.
Not a good idea because you don't know what the psychological state of people is. And to say that guns can be openly carried in bars and restaurants and on college campuses, to me, is absolutely insane.
And it's so intimidating. I mean, you know, for a person to walk around with a gun and on his person, that should not be. But nevertheless, as you indicated, you can do that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we don't have a serious debate going on. We don't have it going on in the churches where it should be, where we talk about Jesus as a peacemaker. We don't have it going on in the circles of the legislature, in Congress, local politics, regional politics, state national politics, because the gun lobby has a stranglehold on so many of us.
Okay, so what we'll do, we'll take our second commercial break, Dr. Baldwin, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about some of the problems in reference to controlling guns. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.